Chapter 21, Reunion. The squad leader got the order, and treated it even more cautiously. He looked in the direction the young soldier pointed. It was a tall black off-road vehicle. If it was a woman, she might find famous cars like Porsche, BMW attractive, but as a man, the squad leader couldn't help but sigh. This car was really beautiful. The tall black body of the car seemed exceptionally majestic and imposing. At this time, a tall girl got out from behind the wheel. "Mom." The three children beside her immediately ran like the wind to the front of that person. "Mom, we can call Daddy out now." Chihao hugged Durua's thigh, looking up at her with his small face. "Yeah, really awesome." She kissed the three little ones one by one, then stood up straight, looked at the soldiers opposite, nodded and smiled. "It's really troublesome for you guys." These two people suddenly had a feeling of not knowing what to do with their hands and feet, a headache, and shyly said it was okay. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." The little brat's eyes were sharp. Chishin just reached the door. They saw their daddy, immediately cheered and ran towards him. Chishin heard the sound and looked back. Hayes, Daddy's little treasures. He quickly walked over, hugged the children, and received a series of childish exclamations. "Hello, Captain Chi." The two quickly recovered their spirits, stood up straight, and saluted. He hummed twice, walked in front of his wife, and said excitedly, "Why did you come here so quickly? Your three children are making a fuss about finding their father." Durua raised her chin to signal the three little minions in her husband's heart. After returning home to eat lunch in a hurry, the three children quickly changed back into the little soldier clothes that their great-grandfather had given them, constantly urging her to go find their father. Even her plan to go see Aunt Lu was disrupted by them, and she could only call Aunt Lu to let her know she was coming. Chishin rubbed this side, then rubbed that side. He thought to himself, his children really knew their father's heart. They were indeed their father's good treasures. "Captain, this is our sister-in-law." Zhou Rui and Yang Kaiqing had already followed, but were frightened by the huge formation of three little darlings. They only knew that the captain had children, but they didn't say that there were three. Then, looking at the captain's wife, it was no wonder that the captain didn't like the little nurses in the military hospital. Although they were all very beautiful, their temperaments were incomparable. The sister-in-law in the family was definitely quite well off. TSK, looking at this temperament, it was really a person versus person comparison, and they were certain to lose. Looking at Chishin, although he was on the defensive on the surface, but his eyes were filled with joy, Durua immediately understood that these two people were his right-hand men in the army. She smiled and extended her right hand. "Hello, I am Chishin's wife, Durua." "Hello, sister-in-law." Without waiting for them to shake hands like this work of art, Chishin had already put down his child and held her hand again. The two of them had no choice but to immediately withdraw their hands and change to a military salute, whispering to themselves, he was really petty. "Let's go back to the room and take a look." Chishin held Durua's hand and went back to the car, carrying the three children into the car, and sat in the driver's seat himself. "Captain, what about us?" Zhou Rui asked with a serious face. "How you come back?" Chishin coldly finished speaking, then he rolled his eyes and stepped on the gas pedal, going in, leaving the two people behind to groan in pain. TSK, this car, really nice." The young soldier smacked his lips, feeling his hands itching to drive it. "Don't think about it, brother, that car, at least, must be very expensive." The squad leader compared his fingers, mysteriously saying. The young soldier widened his eyes. "So much. Although I know that the captain's phone calls are very powerful, meeting him in person is even more powerful." Zhou Rui mockingly shook his head, placing his hand on Yang Kaiqing's shoulder, but he was a little worried in his heart. Could such a sister-in-law be together with the military family? If not, it would be 100% disadvantageous to the captain's work. "All right." Yang Kaiqing patted Zhou Rui's back. "Really like a woman, what good is there in caring about this matter? Go back and tell your wife, improve her relationship with sister-in-law." Chishin held Durua's left hand on the steering wheel, gently caressing it. She did not struggle, indulging his little thoughts and letting him hold it. In this military compound, everyone was a family of Special Forces soldiers. Although it was not luxurious, it was not as bad as a base in the middle of a harsh mountain area. It was considered quite good. Therefore, there were many conditions for family members to join the army. Right on the afternoon of the day off, almost all the military wives finished their housework. Some good relations gathered together to chat, rest a bit. Suddenly, someone looked blankly in a direction. What's wrong? Everyone looked over there, only to see a car that looked sturdy, bright, and majestic was slowly going to the residential area here. Whose car is this? In the military family, although it wasn't like before, the family conditions were not very good. Some military wives also had a car worth more than 100,000 instead of walking. But, people with a bit of eyesight knew that car was not something worth more than 100,000 that could be solved. This car is at least $1 million. A young military wife who knew this kind of Land Rover, roughly guessed a bit, arrogantly said. Everyone was speculating whose car this was. Xiao Man, isn't it your relative? A young woman who looked fashionable, pushed the woman beside her, using a voice that everyone could hear. Oh, that's right. Xiao Man, your family is really rich. Not my family. Zhao Xiaoman, also known as Xiaoman, who everyone had just mentioned, smiled bitterly and shook her head. Her family's conditions were not bad. Her parents were very sharp-eyed and talented. During that period, they caught a lucky chance and made a lot of money in business. However, even if they had money, they were still simple working people and would not spend that much money to buy such a car. At this time, the car stopped steadily in front of a house. The driver's side door opened, and a man in a soldier's uniform got out. It's the captain of the 3rd platoon. A sister-in-law saw it and immediately recognized the person who had come. Everyone craned their necks to look over there. The passenger side door was also opened, revealing a young woman, her black hair tied into a high ponytail, her upper body wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt of a solid color that was slightly tight. Below was a pair of blue jeans, and on her feet were a pair of pure white canvas shoes. Her entire person looked simple and beautiful. There were a few young military wives who couldn't help but lower their heads to look at themselves. Usually they felt that they liked to wear fashionable makeup, but in a flash they felt that it was still simple, couldn't help but smack their lips, and a few emotions arose, but in fact Zhao Xiaoman supported them in her heart. It was really excellent. Wow, so cute, one of the military wives let out a small exclamation. Everyone looked up, and in a flash they were startled. 3 children wearing military uniforms were carried down from the car by Captain Qi. Durua also heard that terrified scream, looked over. Saw everyone's eyes full of stars looking at her 3 children, laughed and patted the children's heads, said to Qi Shen, "Go ahead and say hello." Qi Shen turned around to look back, frowned, laughed. He had seen the charm of the 3 children long ago, but couldn't blame them, held his wife's hand, brought the 3 little ones and walked towards the crowd. Wow, they ran over, everyone saw. One of the ladies who looked relatively old stood up, walked in front of Qi Shen. "Captain Qi, who is this?" "Sister-in-law, this is my wife and children." This was the wife of the supreme leader of the base. Qi Shen respected her very much. His little darlings, big and small, needed someone to take care of them more. Although Madame Li had already guessed it in her heart, after Qi Shen verified it, she was still quite surprised. She had wanted to matchmake him before, but suddenly heard her husband say that this young man was married. At that time, she did not believe it, because she had not seen his wife for 3 years. Who would believe it? Today, she finally saw it. This girl is really beautiful. The 3 children are also really adorable. Madame Li withdrew her thoughts, sincerely praising the whole family in front of her. In reality, no one could escape the charm of the 3 little ones. "Hello, sister." Durua nodded to the other madam. "Thank you for your encouragement, auntie." Hearing someone's encouragement, the 3 little darlings' eyes immediately narrowed into a small line, still not forgetting to say thank you. Everyone chatted for a while, then let Qi Shen's family leave. Just a moment later, the news of the Special Forces squad leader's wife and children arriving spread to every corner of the military district. The 3 little darlings had just gotten off the plane, went home to eat, then hurriedly took a car to the military district. They were already tired. At this time, they exposed their bellies like green frogs, revealing their white and soft bodies on the big bed, preparing to sleep soundly. Duruo was led by Qixin to tour their small house. Because the army was in a remote area, the accommodation was relatively simple. Qixin was allocated a small room, not big. Although the rooms were really close, they were independent courtyards. Although the furniture inside was not all the same style, it didn't matter. Duruo really liked this room. She had thought it would be a boarding house. This room is prepared for 3 children. Qixin opened the door, there was nothing inside, the furniture had not been brought over yet. Tonight, the children would fight over his wife. Thinking of this, his eyes couldn't help but darken. He pulled his beloved wife and hugged her into his arms. Duruo was thinking about how to arrange this room, when she was caught off guard and pulled into a fiery embrace. She raised her head. Just in time to meet a pair of deep and gloomy eyes. You. Ah. Qixin suddenly closed her lips tightly, using his fangs to lightly bite her lips. When he felt her hand lightly placed on his neck, his movements suddenly became domineering and hungry, as if the feelings that had been hidden for a long time were finally released. Not caring about anything else, he passionately kissed deeply. He pried open her teeth, his nimble tongue took the opportunity to slide into her mouth, carefully savoring every inch of the deliciousness that belonged to him, also entangled with her tongue, swallowing her gasps, causing her to tremble. Her whole body felt limp, her breathing became rapid. She pushed his shoulder, until he slightly retreated, then panted and rested her head on his broad shoulder. Can't breathe. She whispered softly. Who would have thought that the man seemed to have had some mechanism opened, his body couldn't move. Mrs. Qi, you're so adorable. Only he could see her like this, he sighed in satisfaction. From now on, you must stand by my side. It had only been once in 5 years, he never wanted to try it again. Ah. After a long while, she softly replied. Waited until he hugged enough, found that the person on his shoulder had already fallen asleep. Carrying her back to bed, looking at the 1 big and 3 small ones lying on the bed, he felt that no matter what the world brought before him, he would not change. This was his wife and children. He held her hand, leaned on the edge of the bed, and also entered a sweet dream.